Welcome to Black Sheep, where I take a look at entries in video game franchises that were poorly received or controversial among the fans. Now, I won't be dwelling on the negative aspects of these games. Instead, I'll be looking in detail at things I liked about the games, whether it was the story, gameplay, music, or anything else it contained, and see if they're really deserving of the infamy that they have. For this episode, we'll be looking at Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age is one of the more recent IPs in the world of video games. The series made its debut in 2009 with Dragon Age Origins, and has since been followed up with Dragon Age 2 and a third title, Dragon Age Inquisition. The second entry in the series is the most divisive among the fans, and is one I've been wanting to talk about on Black Sheep for quite a while. Developed by RPG veterans Bioware and published by EA, Dragon Age 2 was released in 2011 on the PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. Set in the same world of Thedas as the first game, Dragon Age 2 follows the adventures of Hawke, a human who will greatly impact the future of the world with the choices you make. Like any great RPG, story is essential in creating a personal and engrossing experience for every new and returning player. Dragon Age 2 has a unique spin on the classic fantasy story by following the main protagonist's rise to power instead of some grand overarching quest. Over the span of several years, Hawke will go from being a refugee to ultimately becoming the champion of Kirkwall. How you get there and how events play out is up to you through the game's choices, but we'll get into that in more detail later on. The game opens with a dwarf named Varric being interrogated by Seeker Cassandra, who demands to know the tale of the champion because of his or her role in the world-changing event that has happened. Varric, a gold-hearted dwarf who has a knack for telling stories, obliges, and so begins the tale of Dragon Age 2.
The champion was at the heart of it when it all began. If you can't point me to her, tell me everything you know.
You aren't worried I'll just make it up as I go?
Not at all.
You'll need to hear the whole story.
After choosing your gender and your class, you begin your adventure by fleeing the town of Lothering, which is being ransacked by evil beings known as Darkspawn. After the game's prologue, you escape with your family and a friend Aveline to the city-state of Kirkwall to build a new life and reunite with your mother's existing family. Upon arriving in Kirkwall, you discover that your Uncle Gamlen has squandered the family fortune, and the only way to pay your way into the city is to work for a whole year. After the year is over, the true game begins, and we come to the first act of the game, which has Hawke and Varric saving money to fund their expedition to the dwarven deep roads beneath the earth to seek a great fortune.
You need to think big. There's only a brief window after a blight when the deep roads won't be crawling with darkspawn. The treasure you find down there could set you and your family up for life.
It won't be easy, but it's a chance. I think we have to take it. Better to work our way into this expedition than sit around waiting to be thrown in the gallows.
During this time, you meet the supporting cast and your party members for the game. There's your sister Bethany and brother Carver, Varric the dwarf, Aveline of the city guard, Anders the ex-Grey Warden, Meryl the Dalish elf, Fenris the escaped elf slave, and Isabella the sultry pirate. Together you obtain gold by performing quests for people around the city of Kirkwall. Throughout the first act, the groundwork for the later story is set up. In the world of Dragon Age, people with magic abilities are closely monitored and kept in check by Templars, and the tensions between mage and Templar are particularly high in Kirkwall. You also discover a large group of Qunari, horned beings who zealously follow a religion known as the Qun, who have been shipwrecked and are now living in the lower parts of Kirkwall. After interacting with many important figures around the city, making both allies and enemies, you finally obtain enough funds for the expedition and proceed to the Act 1 finale in the Deep Roads. While down in the depths of the Dwarven ruins, you not only find a great deal of treasure, but you also discover a curious magical red idol, which is then stolen by Varric's brother, Bartrand. Returning to Kirkwall, Act 2 then begins with you reclaiming your mansion in Hightown thanks to all the treasure you found in the Deep Roads. With your new status, you are a much more important figure in Kirkwall, and as such, many new challenges and dangers soon make themselves known. Act 2 continues a majority of the subplots from the previous act, and seeing the consequences of your previous choices makes the second act a lot of fun. The true plot of Act 2, however, revolves around the Qunari. Their leader, the Arishok, is close to bringing the wrath of the Qun down upon Kirkwall, and after years of waiting, he decides that the city is too great of an affront to the Qun to ignore.
Look at you. Like fat doth Russie, you feed and complain only when your meal is interrupted. You do not look up. You do not see that the grass is bare. All you leave in your wake is misery. You are blind. I will make you see.
Declaring war on the city, the Arishok then kills the Viscount, but is stopped by Hawk before he destroys the city entirely. As a side note, I've always found the Qunari to be the most intriguing aspect of the Dragon Age series. They are a completely original race in this fantasy setting, and they truly shine in Dragon Age 2. The Arishok is the most compelling character antagonist of the game, as he is not some power-hungry tyrant, but rather a leader who truly thinks he is doing what needs to be done, according to the laws of his religion. You may not agree with his stance on certain things, but he is a very respectable character, and he is still my favorite quote-unquote villain in the Dragon Age series.
We're just here for the elves.
Their actions are mere symptoms. Your society is the disease. They have chosen. The Vidithari will submit to the Qun and find a path your way has denied them.
You can't just decide that. You must hand them over.
Tell me, Hawk, what would you do in my place?
They deserve another chance.
Exactly so. I cannot leave without the relic, and I cannot stay and remain blind to this dysfunction. There is only one solution.
Moving on to the third and final act of the game, Hawk has been titled the Champion of Kirkwall after defeating the Arishok. You think this would be cause for celebration, but an even greater conflict is on the horizon. The tensions between mages and Templar are at an all-time high and are quickly reaching their breaking point. After spending most of the act trying to repair relations, this difference in beliefs comes to a head when your companion Anders destroys the Chantry with magic, murdering everyone within, including the Grand Mother.
Anders, what have you done?
There can be no turning back.
Mercy.
There can be no peace.
Why? Why would you do such a thing?
I remove the chance of compromise, because there is no compromise.
With Kirkwall's Grand Church destroyed by magic, Knight Commander Meredith, the leader of the Templars, declares that every mage in the city must be put down. And so you come to the final gut-wrenching choice of the game, where you must side with either the Templars or mages in this battle. Neither side is truly better than the other, making this choice very much open to your own interpretation, and making it all the more nerve-wracking.
It seems I have no choice but to side with you.
She is a monster. If you help her, you become one as well.
It's unfortunate, but it's the only way.
The mages cannot hide behind their rights when they endanger so many.
Regardless of which side you choose, the final battle of the game is against an insane Knight Commander Meredith. Driven mad by the red idol discovered so many years ago, Meredith has fashioned the magical artifact into a weapon, and it made her paranoia evident even to the Templars in the end. After finishing the tale of the champion, the game concludes with Seeker Cassandra realizing that she must search for or find someone like Hawke to help bring an end to the war between mages and Templars, which is now engulfing the whole world.
So, do we proceed with the original plan, or keep looking?
It is in the Maker's hands now. We put our faith in him.
As you can tell by the lengthy cover of the main story, the tale of Dragon Age 2 is actually quite massive, and I haven't even gotten to the side quests. Despite this, many players were upset with elements of Dragon Age 2's story. Unlike in the previous game, in Dragon Age 2 you can only play as a human. But I would argue that since this tale is on a more specific character, it works. The other Dragon Age games may have given you more options in terms of how you make your character, but this is Hawke's story through and through. Another complaint about the story is how it lacked a central antagonist and a sense of focus. I would respectfully disagree. While very different from most RPG tales, the story of Dragon Age 2 is incredibly unique and my personal favorite of the series. We see a different style of storytelling which focuses on one character over the span of many years, and the game does have a strong central antagonist, just not in the traditional sense. The true antagonist of Dragon Age 2 is circumstance. The Canary, the dispute between Mage and Templar, it all comes back to a clash of beliefs and ideals, and creates an environment where tensions between characters build and build and build until they snap. Some may not find this as engaging as a quest to bring down the Archdemon or Corypheus, but I personally love this element of story in Dragon Age 2, and I would say that overall, the plot of Dragon Age 2 is my favorite in the series. I would also say, in my opinion, the supporting cast of Dragon Age 2 is the strongest in the series. Meryl's self-destructive quest to reclaim the past of her people, Aveline falling in love with one of her fellow guardsmen, Fenris's bitterness toward his former master and mages in general. All the game's side stories with your party members are excellent. Seeing the continuation of these subplots throughout the many years of the game is a very unique feature, and by the end you're sure to have a few favorites. And through your choices in dialogue and actions, you can develop either friendships or rivalries with your companions. Or, if you wish, take things to the next stage and become romantically involved with one of the characters.
We discussed what happened between us 3 years ago.
You didn't want to talk about it?
I felt like a fool. I thought it better if you hated me. I deserve no less. But it isn't better. That night, I remember your touch as if it were yesterday. I should have asked your forgiveness long ago. I hope you can forgive me now.
I understand. I always understood.
If there is a future to be had, I will walk into it gladly at your side.
While I think the characters of Dragon Age are well written across the series, the characters of Dragon Age 2 are the ones I think most fondly of. Well, except for Anders. He's a jerk.
You're a murderer. The Grand Cleric, the mages, their blood is on your hands.
Along with the choices involving the characters, how you respond to story situations throughout the game affects how the rest of the game may play out. While there aren't as many dialogue options as in Dragon Age Origins, the dialogue choices in Dragon Age 2 are all fully voiced, and generally contain great responses for any given situation. You can choose more peaceful, kind dialogue, be a charming, witty rogue, or be more direct, blunt, and threatening. You aren't tied to any choice, and can play the character of Hawke however you wish. So while I generally played as a more friendly character, when someone did something to upset me, I sure let them know it.
Over my dead body.
It's done. Don't make it worse.
Characters will react differently depending on what choices you make, and a character you helped in the first act may return your kindness in one of the later acts. Along with the standard dialogue choices, there are some big choices to make throughout the game, like the aforementioned Templars versus Mages choice. Most of these choices aren't easy to make, and you may find yourself debating on what you believe is the right choice to make in that given situation. Dragon Age 2 has a lot of great dialogue and great choices to make, and is by far and away one of the game's strongest elements.
You seem confused, Seeker.
The champion killed the Arashok in single combat? It just sounds so romantic.
If I didn't know better, I'd say you developed a case of hero worship.
Why? Because I have respect for a woman who built herself from nothing?
As far as combat goes in Dragon Age 2, I must admit that I've always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the combat mechanics in the Dragon Age series. The combat in the first game often felt sluggish, and overall it wasn't one of my favorite RPG combat systems. The definitive version of the first game was on the PC, and for the sequel they wanted to make the game just as enjoyable on the console. And thankfully they upped the speed and fluidity of the combat as well. Fighting foes in Dragon Age 2 is far more satisfying than before, and there is still the tactical element which is essential if you are playing on the higher difficulties. When you see that diving headlong into a fight may not be the best option, you can still strategize your battle by picking skills and movements for your party. Dragon Age 2 also introduced cross-class combos, allowing for your party members to work together even better than before. Having a mage freeze an opponent, and then having your warrior perform a mighty blow on that opponent will shatter them, doing massive amounts of damage. The combat is snappier and more engaging than Dragon Age Origins, and helps intensify every encounter. That being said, I still feel the combat of Dragon Age is my least favorite part of the series, but the storytelling, world, and characters more than make up for it. So why is Dragon Age 2 considered a black sheep? There was the story aspects of the game which I've already touched on, like the antagonists and only being able to play as a human. But the game was also criticized by fans and critics for recycled environments. Many of the caverns, dungeons, and mansions you visit all have the exact same layout, even when they are located on a different place in the world map. This is indeed noticeable and shows that the environments of the game may have not been one of the focal points of development, but I feel that this is such a minor issue that it doesn't really take away from the experience of the game. Dragon Age 2 was a game that had a very tight development schedule, and there are certain aspects like the environments where it shows. At the time, especially among fans, Dragon Age 2 was the most divisive Bioware RPG and had many upset. That is until Mass Effect 3 came along, but that's a story for another time. Bioware took the criticisms of Dragon Age 2 to heart, and several years later the series received its most recent title, Dragon Age Inquisition. Inquisition featured an absolutely massive world to explore, the return of multiple races to choose from, and continued the story from where Dragon Age 2 left off. It was very well received, and with the success of that title, it's very likely we'll see another chapter in the Dragon Age series in the future. So while Dragon Age 2 may be the least popular game in the series, I would say it's actually my personal favorite of the 3 Dragon Age games. The story of Hawke's rise to power is very different from most RPGs out there, but that's part of what I love about it. The game features what I think are the strongest party members in the series, and the segments with the Qunari and the feud between the Mages and Templars are all compelling and thought-provoking. I also liked how Dragon Age 2 was an expansive game, but without being overwhelmingly so. I felt that there was almost too much to keep track of in Inquisition, but in Dragon Age 2 there's a lot of side quests to keep you engaged, but not so many that you feel the game will punish you for not completing everything. Dragon Age 2 is a game with a very intriguing story, great characters, and improved combat system. It remains my personal favorite of the Dragon Age games, and I hope that someday BioWare will return to what works so well in this game and expand on it in a new game for the Dragon Age series. The fantasy world of Thedas is a great one indeed, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this franchise.
Hello?
Talk about dumb luck.
Are you injured? How did you do this?
Boom!
And how did you do that?
Not enchantment.
Smart boy.
Thank you for watching this episode of Black Sheep. What are your thoughts on Dragon Age 2? Any other Black Sheep games you want me to take a look at? Feel free to share in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a like. Until next time, keep having great adventures, everyone!